This is Hispanic Heritage Month.
It is.
Feliz mes de la Herencia Hispana. Happy Hispanic Heritage Month. Let's get it, y'all. It's a celebration. It's a recognition. It's a new rendition. Hey, let's bring it to fruition. Let's talk about it. Welcome to Let's Chew the Gum. I'm your host, Protocol. We talk a lot about a lot of things in this show while we chew the gum, and just like every show, we always have
something for your mind, something for your mind, something for your mind.
정신을 집어넣으세요. 어떤 것이 필요합니까?
Something for your
정신을 집어넣으세요.
mind,
정신을 집어넣으세요.
something for your
Welcome to this latest edition of Let's Chew the Gum, the podcast where we talk about everything from A to Z while we chew the gum. And I am so honored to have my guest today for our continued celebration of Hispanic Heritage Month. My guest is none other than Judith Franco. She is the CEO and founder of Accelerated Counseling and Educational Services. This is a vocational training service. Judith, I'm so glad to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. It is an honor and privilege. Thank you very much.
No, it is indeed an honor. You know, when as I read about your story and began to hear about it, as you know, I became instantly inspired and motivated. And as I told you off air, I'm already very motivated and very inspired just, waking up each day. But to understand that you're giving back in this unique way, in terms of providing services for injured workers so that they can, re-enter the workforce as viable wage earners. That's fantastic. And not only that, but the special touch that you put upon doing that. There's a business side to things, but you have a story. You didn't just decide to engage in a service like this. There's a story. And I love for my audience to be able to hear it. So can I ask you to share that story?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I actually, the story behind it is that I am the child of a parent who was an injured worker. So both my parents, my mother and father, came to the United States when my father was 16. My mom, I believe, was in her early 20s, both single parents. So they didn't speak the language. They absolutely did not. So they came here with nothing. And, they migrated to the United States, not knowing the language, already being, vulnerable populations, both of them. So my dad worked his way up, and he worked 30 plus years in construction. So that's literally almost my entire life, So I remember watching my dad going to work at nights, sleeping through the day so that he can go to work in the middle of the night and come home the next day. And I remember when he was injured, he got injured at work, and he had to basically reinvent himself. So my dad did, he was able to get what we call the supplemental job displacement voucher from his workers' compensation case. And he used it to recreate himself and to take a training program that was going to secure his finances. And I remember being a little girl, and I would be at home watching my dad. It makes me emotional because he had to learn a language, and he had to really sit there and take the time to understand what he was doing. And through that, he was able to learn a language, learn how to use a computer, take a whole training course and make something out of that, because he was the only breadwinner at home. It was me, my older sister, my baby brother, who was sick throughout his whole infant life, and my mom. So he was the main breadwinner, and he had to basically make a way for his entire family. Um, but fast forward to how I've been able to like show, for my parents, that I was able to get my undergrad in social work. I was able to work with all of those vulnerable populations. I was able to go to grad school. I was able to get a degree for credibility, not for show, but I was able to, now I can help other people who are in the same, you know, place where my own father was, but yeah, I'm first generation Latina, and I'm able now to help clients who don't know the language or don't understand the workers' compensation lingo, things like that.
That's outstanding. And there's a lot that I love about it. I was going to say what I love about it most, and then I thought, wow, A, B, C, D, or E, right? But there's a lot to love about that story. And I'll begin with your dad. The idea of being a language learner, and
Yes.
and I'm going to say being forced to have to learn the language and the trade, right? And when I say forced, is because obviously there's a love of family, and as a father myself, right, there is no other option but to move forward, right? There's a setback, but here's the pathway, and I need to
Yeah.
take care of my family, and he did that. And one thing about that some folks don't understand when it comes to language learners, sometimes you'll see language learners and they're struggling in classes, right? They may be failing the class or not doing so well. And a lot of people are quick to think that they don't have the aptitude to do it, right? What they don't understand is, in addition to learning new content, they're learning the language and the nuances of that language. Because just because you speak a language doesn't mean, or sorry, that you learn a language doesn't mean you can use it in the context of a specific skill or trade, right? So there's a lot of nuances there.
Exactly, because there's always a slang to whatever language you're learning.
Right, the slang, the trade language. So that's outstanding, and the fact that you were able to witness that and to see what your father was able to accomplish for his family, and for you now to be in that position to serve others, it makes it so much different, because there are services out there, and some people may be in it because it's a job, but they don't necessarily have the experience or the personal association that brings the understanding and the patience and the particular care that you might have, or I'm sure that you exhibit with your clients. You know what I'm saying?
Right, exactly. It just makes it that much more personal. And I can literally sit there and tell them, "Hey, I get it, If you need to take a break, let's talk. What's really going on? You know? Why really haven't you chosen a course? Are you having a hard time? Do you understand what you're reading? You know, there's what I tell a lot of my clients is, don't be afraid to ask questions. It's not you complaining, you're just asking, and by asking, that's how we learn, right?
Absolutely.
So it's so important to advocate for yourself, but sometimes there's people that don't know how to advocate for themselves. So sometimes I do have those clients where all they need is like that little motivational speech to stand up for themselves. Some people just need to learn how to write things down. Other clients just need that translation lingo. Other clients, they just need somebody to sit there and hear them out. Like, I've been with clients on the phone for 30 plus minutes, but at the end of the day, it's like I get that good review, or I do get that client that's like, "Man, thank you so much." And I didn't even say anything. I was just there on the phone with them, listening to what they were telling me. And sometimes it's just that, because mental health has everything to do with it, especially with injured workers.
Yes.
Because think about it, You worked, like, let's take my dad, for example. My father worked construction basically his entire life. And one day, he had an accident at work. He gets injured, and they tell him, oh, by the way, you're never going to be able to do the same job you were doing. So here's a little voucher. Go and make something out of it. Think about how emotionally and mentally that ruins you. That, like, interrupts your schedule. It interrupts, like, your future plans with your family. Like, me and my sister were little. We're 1 year apart. So me and my sister were little. We were so little, like in elementary school. It was a lot of work for my mom and dad. So my dad had to reinvent himself, and it was a lot of mental health, a lot of like, communication, like talking about what the process is like. It's a long process. It's frustrating. You're dealing with adjusters. You're dealing with verbiage that sometimes is hard to understand. I
Absolutely.
still look things up. I always look up words all the time.
Sure. No, it is. It does take an emotional toll, and I can speak to that from a personal experience. I was an injured worker many years ago, where I was not able to return to work, and as a father of three, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, what am I going to do, and how am I going to support my family, and I went through a program, but still that displacement, if you aren't mentally sound and capable or have a support system, it can be daunting. And, for some people,
Right.
they may give up. They may not see that as a possibility, especially when you're talking about individuals that may, not have known about resources. Maybe their experience with the schooling system or bureaucracy hadn't been so positive. And so that's a trigger for them to even take that approach. Add to it vulnerable populations, it's compounded. So, again, being able to have someone in that position that actually cares for their clients and actually gets it, that's so important. And
Yes.
I can't say it enough. Speaking of vulnerable populations, this is Hispanic Heritage Month, and these.
It is.
Yes, it is. And so these episodes are dedicated to that, whether it's because of the individual or the service or the community or whatever. As a population, oftentimes we think vulnerable populations, and you pick a poster. What's a vulnerable population? Is it inner city black person? Is it Hispanic person, or what have you? Vulnerable populations exist everywhere, but in
Yeah.
situations where you have systemic discrimination, systemic racism, underemployment, devaluing of culture, that makes it even more of a vulnerable situation. You were talking about individuals who may not have the ability to advocate for themselves,
Yes.
because they have been through systems that have been just, oh my goodness, dismissive of them as a culture. How do
Yeah.
you take them through the process of helping them to reinvent themselves, helping them to have the ability to be self advocates, or just to empower them to continue on? What does that look like?
Thank you so much for asking that. I'm so glad you asked, because actually, if you look at our the ACEs logo, around the ACEs, the logo is a shield.
Yes.
So our motto is, the title of the company is called Accelerated Counseling and Educational Services. And the motto is educating, I'm sorry, empowering injured workers through education. So I am also a college professor at a community college. So it's natural for me to teach, right? So I educate my clients as much as I can. And I literally go step by step. I tell them, okay, you have this voucher. What is a voucher? You know, this is how it's cut into three different parts. What does that look like? So I educate them on the lingo, on the words. So a lot of people don't understand what an S, J, B, S, whatever, all these little abbreviations, and I translate that for them. So just educating clients, empowering them through education and letting them know, hey, by the way, just because you migrated here, or just because you are Mexican or Hispanic or Peruvian or Salvadorian, whatever it doesn't mean that you're lower. It doesn't mean you're less. Think about it. You're here trying to learn a different language. Therefore, you have double to offer than a normal person, or, a basic person. You're not basic. And just empowering them and finding those skills. Like one of the questions that I ask is, what was your title at your last job? Or what was expected of you? So they would say, I was the manager. Perfect. Being a manager already tells me that you have leadership skills. It already tells me that you know how to multitask. It already tells me that you're creative. It already tells me that you know how to be organized, because those are basic skills of a manager. Right. And sometimes they're like, oh my gosh, you're so right. I do have a lot of responsibilities. I never thought about that, because hello, going through a workers' compensation case, you're beat down, like emotionally, obviously physically, because you're injured, mentally, because you don't know. This is all new to you, so yes. Just educating clients, empowering them through education.
No, that is so very important. Education is the key. And I'm glad you phrased it that way. Sometimes, again, just helping folks to realize, look at the skills you have, and the way you phrase that. What was the title of your last job? They begin to speak about that, something they know, something they're comfortable with, and then you're there to help them realize what that actually entails. And I've been the same way with my students sometimes, who thought they couldn't. And so sometimes it's about the idea of being able to have transferable skills. And I'll say, look, this is what you were doing before. This is exactly the same as whether it's multiplication, division, or in-depth analysis, right? They've just done it in a different format. And maybe it was never validated. Maybe it was never a title or phrase was never put to it to show them, the true value of that. So that's very important.
Yes.
You also spoke.
And
go ahead.
You said that golden word, the golden word, validation.
Absolutely.
Sometimes, who doesn't want to be validated? Everybody likes we love being told all of our good traits, and that's such a good word that you use, validation.
Yeah, and especially for, as you said, people in those situations, workman's comp, oftentimes you are beat down. You've just been kicked off of your pathway, your journey. Oftentimes there may be some medication involved that may have you kind of just woozy because you're in pain and the disruption and you're feeling pretty low. So we definitely need that. I was going to say, you brought up another point where you were saying, to some clients, just because you said Mexican or Hispanic or Salvadoran or whatever, right, doesn't mean you're lower. And that's something that I try to emphasize. And I don't like the fact that I have to do that. I understand why, because of the systems we live in that have devalued people from various cultures. And I'm saying I don't like to do that, because why should we? We're human beings, but it's necessary, because I don't want to see people who have so much value go around feeling devalued with an I can't mentality. And one of the things that I never understood, so I'm not a native Californian. I'm from Michigan originally. But I remember moving to California, and I remember seeing the way that people, and I'll just say non-traditional English speakers, were being treated or thought of or characterized as being stupid, less than, dumb. And I thought, why what is this cruelty, right? I understood. Now I've seen racism and discrimination, but I just couldn't understand, why is it that if someone is not speaking this language, that makes them less than? Because again, you asked, what was your previous title? I've seen people who were professors in other countries, medical workers, lawyers, whatever it may be. But here when they've come here because of some discrimination in language, et cetera, or possibly a degree that didn't transfer, they may be in a different job title, right? If
Right.
one at all. But folks would just go around and assume, I mean, just the audacity to assume that someone is not intelligent. And even if someone did not have the intellectual capacity, perhaps they weren't educated in a formal school. Those are human beings.
Fire.
Those are
Yes.
human beings
Yes.
with lived experiences and probably have skill sets that you could never have, and able to do things you could never do. And it's
Yes.
just, I never have understood how people could be so short-sighted, right? So self-centered as to have that approach. And so a lot of my work in social justice is about, again, empowering and validating people, getting them to see the contributions that they've made. Hispanic Heritage Month, highlighting the contributions and the excellence of people. And again, I don't like to do this, just like I don't like to have Black History Month, but it's important to have it, because for me, it's an everyday thing. It's a human thing. And
Yes, it is.
that's always bothered me. Always. We're going to take a quick break because I'm getting really, I don't know if I'm excited or perturbed or both, but we're going to take a quick break. Have a sponsor come in here. Let me calm down a bit before I jump through the speakers and all that. But this is important.
Breath.
Yeah. And I don't need a breath. I just need a break because no, this is important. And I really do want to emphasize to my listeners the idea of humanity. We'll be right back.
Where do you watch TV?
On Watch TV.
Nowhere.
On Watch TV.
What's on Watch TV?
On Watch TV is one of the most exciting channels on Roku and Amazon Fire TV, with lots of categories to choose from movies to music, documentaries, and more. There's something for everyone.
What if people want to place their content on Watch TV?
You can visit the website onwatchtv.net to find out more, or email onwatchtv@gmail.com. Don't forget, check out On Watch TV. See you on Watch TV.
See you on Watch TV.
On Watch TV is available now on Roku and Amazon Fire TV. Check it out. On Watch TV. Okay, welcome back. Thank you for listening to our sponsors. This is Let's Chew the Gum, the podcast where we talk about everything from A to Z while we chew the gum. My guest is Judith Franco of Accelerated Counseling and Educational Services, a vocational training services, but with a human touch, I like to say. We're going to make sure that we put all of your information in the description, your website, Instagram, and whatnot, so folks can definitely keep up with you. I wanted to bring it back because before the break, I got a bit. You can use whatever words you want. You know, people that listen to me frequently know that I'm passionate about human stories, and I'm very passionate about the way we treat others, and so that emotion is real. That emotion is raw. And frankly, there's nothing wrong with emotion. You know, catch me being human anytime. And I know also that this story is personal for you, Judith. So, you know, the emotions that you express, you know, that's perfectly fine here as well, right? And so you were expressing some emotions because.
Yes. Oh, I was actually apologizing for getting emotional earlier, but I wanted to say that when I cry because not because I'm sad. I cry when I'm really angry and frustrated, you know, because I've literally seen and I have watched people talk to my parents a certain type of way because because they have an accent, or because, you know, when I was little, I couldn't defend them, you know? So I've literally watched and it sucks for me. I'm like, what the heck? You know, so I'm a tiger. I'm a lion. I will defend, you know, my parents to death, you know, whether that's on paper or in person, you know, and I'm not. I have to say this. Sorry. This is, I know your show is very raw, and please, this is not to offend anybody at all, but this is, I just want you guys to see this is how passionate I am about the things that I believe in. Okay.
Sure.
So I'm not a fighter at all. I'm not like a physical fighter. I think like the only person I've ever been in a physical fight with is my sister. Right. So that was when we were young kids. But I like to, I'm very for social justice. So I'm not a physical fighter, but I fight with my words, but I do fight professionally, and I will use words that are very like to the point, very direct, and that's just the way that I do things. But I will, if I have ever, now as an adult, when I've seen people that have tried to talk to my parents a certain way, if I'm there physically present, I will put that person on blast.
Absolutely.
But, like, what did you say? Really? Like, don't assume things. Like you said earlier, don't assume. Don't be that. I know you're not that naive. Don't do that to yourself. A conversation I was having with my parents yesterday was, the more we speak, the more you give other people knowledge and information of the person that you are, right? Everything
Yes.
is based on our reactions, right? So if we react a certain type of way when somebody does something or somebody says something to us, that says so much about who we are.
Yes. Indeed.
Right? So
Indeed.
I like to keep it classy, so I will fight with my words and with my knowledge.
No, and I can appreciate, the level of where you're clarifying, because, some folks out of context can hear us talking about, the fight and whatnot and not understand it. We fight for our rights. We fight for our
Absolutely.
rights. When folks are in Congress debating and they're adamant and passionate about a piece of legislation and they're speaking of it, that's a fight for rights. When folks were marching for rights, whether it was the Chicano movement, whether it's the Black liberation movement, women's movement, those were fights for rights. So this idea of that we can't fight, no, I think that's something that was taken away from lots of people that enabled certain groups to remain in power, right? So the fight for justice is the noble fight. And I'm the same way. If I'm seeing injustices anywhere, I'm speaking up for it and about it, because I want someone to do the same for me, or for my neighbor, or for my mother, or for my friend, or for my community, or for humanity, right? And
Exactly.
as the saying goes, a threat to justice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And further, I'll paraphrase, but there's and I know this person, I can't think of the name right now, but the idea of, when they came and, killed and fought the Jews, I didn't say anything because I wasn't Jewish. When they came for the blacks or whatever, I wasn't black, so I didn't say anything. When they came for women, I wasn't a woman, so I didn't stand up and fight. When they came for the Polish, I wasn't Polish, so I said nothing. But when they came for me, there was no one left standing for me, right? So we really have to be, the caretakers of our brothers and sisters everywhere when it comes to justice. And it's a noble fight. And I think that anyone listening would know that and understand that. But again, this idea of a lack of respect for humanity is something that I hope stops, right?
Absolutely, yes.
But again, just to change the tone just a bit, not too much, because it's important. This is about celebration and about recognition this month. It's 1 month. I was talking in the show last week. Some folks were asking, why does Hispanic Heritage Month begin in the middle of September and then end in October? They called it a half and half month. And I had explained to them, I said, well, the reason is because during the 1800s, when a few nations in Central America, they declared their independence from Spain, and that happened on September 15th. And then you look at all the nations in Central and South America, and in succession throughout the month of September after that, they declared their independence. For example, Mexico on September 16th, right? And then a few others.
Yes.
And then even as far as I said before, Belize or British Honduras, September 21st, even though it was 1981 for them. And so that's the reason that it happens that way. But again, very glad to have you on to be able to tell your story, the story of your family, and about the work that you're doing, especially for vulnerable people, because that is a great example of excellence for Hispanic Heritage Month.
Thank you so much.
So
I am
go ahead.
so honored to share the story. Sorry, I just wanted to say thank you so much for your time. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to even just say, like, hey, there's still people out here who believe in social justice, and I'm one of them. So
no, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think there are a lot more. And as you said, sometimes people just need to know that there are others. Some people need to even understand, okay, so what is social justice? They may feel like they aren't. But as you said before, educating them on words and what that means, then, they figured that out and they're like, oh, I am someone for social justice, right? People are standing up for the rights of themselves, family members, and others in a variety of ways every day. May not consider themselves a social justice leader, warrior, fighter, advocate, etc., but they truly are. And so here, we're talking about being that for a lot of people, right? For a lot of people.
Yes.
So for our listeners, anyone that's in need of assistance, how would they go about requesting your particular services? Obviously, they could go to your website at online, but how would they go about requesting that type of service?
So all they can do is, if there's any injured workers who have a workers' compensation case, they may or may not be eligible for what's called a supplemental job displacement voucher. So once they receive the voucher, they are able to work with a vocational counseling center and a vocational counselor who can help guide them, connect them to the school that they need to enroll in to use the benefits and receive all the reimbursements within the voucher. So I just want to make it clear that it's very particular. They must work with a California approved vocational counselor, because not all vocational counseling centers have actual California approved. So they can, yes, definitely look us up online. The website is www.acceleratedcounselingeducationalservices.com. The email is Judy, JUDY, at acceleratedcounselingeducationalservices.com. We are on Instagram. Instagram is aces_worldwide. And we are also on Facebook as vocational counselor. And also find us on YouTube, Accelerated Counseling Educational Services. So you will be able to also find lots of information on the voucher on our YouTube or on my YouTube page.
That's outstanding. All bases covered. So no matter
Yes.
where they may be or what platform they're on, they have access. Now, is this a something that's regional? Do they have to be in a certain vicinity of you? So if they're in Sacramento, can they reach you if you were in San Diego, or if you were in, right? Is it a regional thing, or does it matter where they are in California?
Yes. So thank you for asking that. That's important to know. So as long as their workers' compensation case happened in California, they can literally be anywhere in the world, and they can reach out to me and I can help them.
That is outstanding. Outstanding.
Thanks to technology.
Yes, technology has made a lot of that possible, right? And
yes.
No, that's great. So speaking of technology, if someone has, I want to make sure we get this out here. I'm going to promote and put this everywhere because it's useful information. I won't even worry about it if someone doesn't have technology. How do they, right? There's a million ways that people may or may not have access. I don't know if there's a million ways, but people may or may not have access to technology. But those that are listening, share with a friend, put it up on your refrigerator, put it up on the wall, on the street, on the lamppost, on a t-shirt, put it everywhere that these services are available. And I'm particularly happy to, support this service because of the personal touch. I've gone through a vocational counseling service before, and it wasn't so personal. It was as if, I felt like they were treating me as if they were doing me a favor, which they were. But it was not in a caring situation. I was just a case. I was just a number, right?
Right.
But this is so different for me because you actually care about the people that are coming through.
Of course.
And you have.
And just to remind everybody, working with a vocational counselor, you're literally hiring somebody to represent you, and that is reaching out to adjusters. Sometimes it is reaching out to your attorney, because sometimes once your case closes, that's it. Nobody will answer the phone. Sometimes the school that somebody else referred you to closed because it wasn't an approved California school that was accredited. So just make sure. And I can give out my number. My phone number is area code 951-790-2185. So again, I do work with English and Spanish speaking clients. And sometimes even if they do speak a different language, I'm able to still communicate them via email and text message. So I use all of my resources to be able to help my clients and advocate for them, because that's most important. Advocating for clients.
Absolutely. That's so important. English and Spanish services. I actually dream in Spanish. I tell people a lot. I dream in Spanish, and it's true. I'm not making it up. It's true. And I'm very fluent in my sleep. I understand everything that I'm hearing, and I'm speaking back. And then I wake up and I'm excited. I say, I'm going to say this and this and blah, blah, blah. And then I get ready, and then it doesn't come out the way that I want it to. So I need to practice. It's true. I tell people, I speak a little Spanish, enough to get by. And so people will say, well, and that's funny. It's a true story. I do dream in Spanish, and I'm so excited when I wake up.
Oh my gosh.
I do. And then it doesn't come out, and people say, well, where did you learn Spanish? And then I try to formulate it, and I'll say, let's see if I can put this together. Yo fui estudiante en español en la escuela, pero en mi español es muy bueno, pero cuando yo me iba en lo oíste, la gente no hablaba mucho, so no recuerdo mucho. Pero cuando tomar mi español es perfecto.
That is not bad at all. Bravo.
I try. No, it's true. So I can get by. No, but thank you so much for being on the show and sharing this important information with my audience. And
Absolutely.
I truly, we don't want people to have to be in that situation of workman's comp, etc. But that's a reality. And so when they are,
Yes.
You guys, please look up Judith Franco, because she's doing great work at Accelerated Counseling and Educational Services, and is personalized for you. Thank you so much, Judith.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
All right. This has been Let's Chew the Gum, the podcast where we talk about everything from A to Z while we chew the gum, even during Hispanic Heritage Month. And remember, we always have
Something for your